everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a VR to Kelly from the Truth and Story to her 10 pieces of my soul decks, which she uploaded a long time ago. And I wanted to do a VR to this for a long time. But life got in the way, and so I had to pause the complete month of January and the last half of December 2021 as well, I think. And so I only got to film and do this again right now. So better late than never, I should say. So but I still wanted to do this, and there will also be 2 other VRs that are around, or at least one other VR that is around for months now here on YouTube that I didn't got to because of my needed break or pause, but that I still want to do. So you can keep an eye out on my channel for that one to come. And one other one that isn't actually, or that wasn't actually created as a VR or as a tag, but I still wanted to do a VR or video response to it because I found that topic quite interesting and I loved watching that video. So, but that video was also a long time ago. So I'm pretty much always better late than never to the party VR thing here on YouTube, but it is what it is. All right, so let's start. I will have a link, so if you're not, if you haven't watched that video, if you're not familiar with what this tag is about, I will have a link to the original video that Kelly over the Truth and Story did in the video description down below, so that you can watch hers and the topics and themes that she talked about, because mine will be a little bit different. Because this is actually about the tarot decks that are close to your heart and that feel like that you have a close connection to, because they feel like they understand or show a part of yourself. Like the whole term soul deck is popular on YouTube or on TarotTube. This is kind of like that, but for the people that can't decide on only one deck to be their soul deck. And it also highlights the fact that we all have different sides of us in us. We're not only one personality. We don't only have one character trait or one face that we show the world all the time. It depends on the surroundings, on the people around you, what personality type you are showing in a way. I mean, we all are different things to different people. Like, we are a child, a parent, a lover. So that is that. And now we want to talk about the tarot decks that we feel represent or speak to these different pieces of our soul. And so the different, or the 10 different categories, can vary from video to video, from creator to creator, because not everybody is the same. And so I have a few of the ones that Kelly did use as well, but then I have some other ones that she didn't, but that feel more fitting to me and myself. So let's start with the first one, and the first one is your first tarot deck, the deck that you learned with, the deck that is personal to you because of that, because you have nostalgia with it in a way, and that will always have that special place because it was the first deck that you ever had and that you learned on and that you did your first tarot reading with. And for me, that is the Tarot of Vampyres by Ian Daniels. Now, I have to say that this artwork is gorgeous, but some of it is a little bit too cheesy, maybe. But on the other hand, some cards are super gorgeous and beautiful, like this death card, for example. The reason why I got it was that I saw the review slash walkthrough of this deck over on Kelly's channel, and she did pretty much a deep dive into it. I think there was two parts even for this deck, because she also took a lot of time to show the guidebook and all of the good stuff that was in there. And because of that, of the guidebook, the good information that you got in it, I decided that this would be my first deck, because I didn't need to buy another tarot book, because it has so much information in that guidebook that it could be actually a tarot book on its own and not just a guidebook. The other reason why I bought it is because I love vampires. Vampires for me are really fascinating creatures. I'm much more a vampire fan than I'm a fairy fan or an angel fan or something like that. In terms of mythical, magical creatures, vampires are probably my favorite. Not to say that I'm a huge fan of like the nice shimmering, glittering in the sun kind of vampires. But yeah, the whole vampire thing, and also the psychological thing, when you translate that into our real life, is also quite interesting. And there are not a lot of vampire tarot decks out there, actually. And so because of that and because of the book, I bought this. Also because it wasn't the most expensive deck, it was pretty affordable for what you get, especially with that big book. And it was easy to get over here in Germany as well. So this was my first deck. And even though it isn't my absolutely most favorite in terms of artwork, I still love it because I have that deep bond with it, because I have that nostalgia factor to it. And it is the deck with which I do my year ahead readings, which I do on Samhain, actually, or on the 1st of November. So with the topic that fits into that time of the year, and it just feels, it just feels right to use this deck. It just feels like it wants to be used for that reading. So this will probably always be in my collection. The next deck, now we're diving into with the next four decks, we're diving into astrology in the sense that I talk about the four dominant aspects in my astrological chart and the decks that I feel fit these aspects in me and these character traits in me the most. First off, and Kelly did that too, at least I think she talked about her Libra sun and the deck that she thought about when thinking about that category. So the first one that I want to talk about is my Sagittarius sun. Yes, I'm a Sag in terms of sun energy. And for that, I picked the Badass Baby Unicorns Tarot. This is by Our Daily Magic. I'm not sure if this is still in print. This is an indie deck. If so, I will put a link in the video description where you can get it. If not, then not. But this is pretty funny in terms of it has all these little unicorns. But even though it is pretty colorful and has more the softer kind of colors and the baby unicorns, this is probably the most confident, sassy, pretty much temperamental kind of deck that I have in my collection. So don't let it fool you by its sweet colors and sweet baby unicorns. I use this one, but I use it not really often because of that, because it has a really strong voice and a really direct and confident and no bullshit kind of voice. So I need to be in the mood for that. And that is also where my Sag Sun comes in, because with Sagittarius, we often, and I'm not saying that every Sagittarius is that way or that we can't be otherwise, but we often say things pretty direct, pretty on point. We say the truth, we say the things that we think, and we often say things before we think about what that could mean or how that could affect the other person. Or we say things which for us aren't bad in terms of wording or the words we are using, but others may not understand our way of communicating, and they may interpret the wording as being disrespectful or or swearing kind of words, which for me it isn't. It is just a normal way of saying it. And so this deck represents that, because it says things the way they are if you want to hear them or not. It is pretty direct. It uses swearing in it. You can see these little phrases in here. And so sometimes it can feel a little bit too much. So that is for my Sagittarius Sun and the reason why I picked this one. So next up is my Sagittarius Moon. Yes, I'm not only a Sagittarius Sun, but also a Sagittarius Moon, so I have double Sagittarius energy, double fire energy. Which is, I mean, I like it, but sometimes I don't like it. Sometimes it can get a little bit too much. So for my Sagittarius Moon, I went with this deck, and this is my own created tarot deck. It isn't out yet. It will come out next week on February the 14th on Make Playing Cards. When it's up to buy, to grab a copy, I will have a link in the video description down below. I will have a link to my website where I talk a little bit about the backstory of this deck and give a little bit of preview images and information about this deck. So if you're interested, go check that out. So this deck is based on landscapes and nature. You can see that they are all in landscape format instead of portrait, because that fitted most of the images better. I mean, landscape format depicting landscapes, obvious. But it leaves space, it leaves room for you to get into the card and to explore and to be free to do whatever you want in that landscape of that specific card and with that energy. And for me, that speaks so much to my Sagittarius moon, to that feeling of I want to be free, I want to explore, I want to learn new things. I'm noisy. I want to see what's around the corner. I don't want to get told what I need to do in that image and what I can't do, where I can go and where I can't. And because of that freedom of that space, in terms of going into the image and explore it, but as well in terms of how you interpret the cards, because they're pretty open for your interpretation to fit on there. That really speaks to that wide and open energy of my Sagittarius moon. So yeah, that is my own created Little Miracles Tarot. As I said, if you're interested, go click the link in the video description down below and check it out. Next up is my Pisces rising. So we add a little bit of water energy into the mix. And for my Pisces rising, I chose the Shadowscapes Tarot. And I heard a lot of people talk about this deck being airy. I feel like I can see that as well. But for me, it feels more watery in a way. Because of the watercolor that was used, because of all that flowing motion in a lot of the cards. It has a little bit of a dreamy energy to it as well, of a surreal, magical energy, which Pisces is all about. It is ruled by Neptune. It is super intuitive, super dreamy in a way. And this deck feels like that for me. And I love the artwork in this deck. I love all the little details. I love the gentler colors. I love the flowiness of it. You can get lost in the imagery in this whole universe. And that is what speaks to my Pisces rising. And it's pretty much what I think of like Pisces aesthetic as well, since we're talking about Pisces rising. And our rising sign is more about what we show to the world. First, so, and how we appear to other people. And this for me has that Pisces look to it in a way. The way that the colors are used, more pastels, more watercolor, gentler colors, the way the light plays, the way dresses and hair are flowing. It is just gorgeous. So yeah, that is my Pisces rising deck. This is by Stephanie Puman Law with the guidebook by Barbara Moore. It is a mass market deck, so you can get it quite easily. And it's just gorgeous. All right, next up, the one other deck that I want to talk about, which fits in that more astrological category. Well, I had my sun sign, my moon sign, and my rising, but the other energy that is really, really prominent in my chart, that is probably the most dominant, even though I have Sagittarius energy in my sun and my moon, is Capricorn. Basically, all of the other planets, except for maybe one other one, is in Capricorn, and my Sag Sun is actually right at the right in between Sag and Capricorn as well. I think 1 or 2 days later, and I would be a Capricorn sun. So I have a lot of Capricorn energy. And I feel that every single day. That earth energy, that grounded, not necessarily grounded, but that it loads or it sits oftentimes on top of all my fire and my water. And that really direct, realistic, no nonsense, earth energy fits my Neoclassico. This is the version that, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm blanking. That Il Melangello put Menegello, that is how you pronounce it, hopefully, put out. This is the Tarrocho Neoclassico. It's a reproduction, basically, of an 1810 deck, and it is a pip deck. But what I found is it is not a traditional Marseille because the pips are in a different order on these cards. But what I found with this deck is that it gives you the answer that you need in a really straight and direct way, not in a temperamental, confident, kind of badass way like the baby unicorns did, but in a clean, direct, clear, and simple kind of way. Like, it doesn't talk like 2 pages full of text for you to get a message that could probably all be said in one sentence. It just will give you that one sentence, and that is all you need, because it is super clear and you perfectly know what it's talking about, what you need to do next. And yeah, and that straightforward, clear, on point reading type energy that this deck gives feels really in line with my Capricorn energy that I have in my chart, at least for me. Like with all of these astrology signs, you might interpret them or associate different energies with them as well. So that is this deck. Next category, and that is one that Kelly had as well, is the deck that talks to my high priestess. And that is a really special category for me because the high priestess is actually one of my favorite cards. Actually one of 2 favorite cards out of the major arcana, the high priestess and then justice. And so I always felt really drawn to this card. I felt connected to it, not in a way that I want to say I'm a super high priestess and I'm better than everybody else, and I don't have to learn anything from the high priestess because I'm the embodiment of it. No, definitely not. But I feel connected in a way. And the one deck that I have thought about immediately when I heard that category was the Prisma Visions. Because this deck has my favorite High Priestess card, probably of all of the decks that I have in my collection currently and that I have seen. There are some that are pretty close, but this one will probably be my favorite forever. I just love it. And how funny is it that a High Priestess card is actually on top here? I didn't know that. You can think probably that I picked it out and put it on top, but I didn't. But how perfect it is that she shows up here. This deck just feels watery to me. it feels like I'm tapping into, that isn't the extra card for the edition that I have. It feels like I'm tapping into the deep waters of the High Priestess, tapping into that other realm, going through that portal, that veil that she protects and she stands in front, diving deep with all of these deep dark blue colors in here. The way his art style is with all of this flowiness in here as well. The more darker tones, because the background isn't white, but the colors are on top of that dark blue. It just feels that way. And here you can see all of that swirliness as well. Sometimes the image is blending into, so it's at first glance hard to see because you don't have really well-defined lines with some of them. But that is what makes the magic of this deck. I mean, when you're diving into the depth of the waters of the High Priestess, you can't see anything at first. It is deep work that needs time and trust. So yeah, that is my High Priestess deck. I could talk about hours for each of these decks, but I try to be as fast as I can and move it a little bit more quickly, because otherwise we will be here for hours. Alright, the next category that I wanted to share with you is the deck that speaks to my inner child. And that deck is one from Joanna Nelson. Oh, the Prisma Visions is by James R. Eads. I think I forgot to mention that. And for me, that is the Whispering Spirits Tarot. This has a little bit bigger cards. But Joanna Nelson's work it looks cute, but it feels like, I don't know, it just touches, there's something about it that touches my inner child. The colors that she chose, the way she applied the colors and worked with the colors, the way she draws these creatures. And don't get me wrong, this deck, even though it looks cute, gives you the message that you need. So it's not candy and sugar and doesn't talk about the challenging stuff in life. It's basically more RWS clone, but it gives you the message that you need, even though it is challenging. It addresses challenging or hurtful aspects as well, but it gives it to you in a little bit of a gentler way. And it just connects to my heart and to my inner child in me. So I use this a lot for inner child work, and funny enough, I think we already passed it. I bought this deck because I intended it to be my inner child deck and I love the artwork. And when I received it, I opened it, and the Six of Cups card, which I have here in my hands, there were actually two Six of Cups cards in this deck. They were attached to each other, so they did stick to each other. And that is probably the reason why there were two, because it looked like it was only one, but it felt thicker. I was able to remove one. It left a little bit of a mark on here on the back, but that doesn't bother me. And what a coincidence that in the deck that I got, there was this double card, and the double card was the Six of Cups, which is talking about that inner child, about seeing life with the eyes or through the eyes of a child. I mean, irony, pure irony. So that was something special. All right, next up, 3 more decks to go. And next up is my deck that I use for past life and ancestry work. And that speaks to the piece of my soul that probably lived in at least one of my past lives, and the past life that this deck, that I was able to connect with and visit through this deck. And this is my Mary L. Tarot. This is by Mary White. It is still available. It is a mass market deck, but you can't get the edition that I have. This is the first edition. There is a second or third edition out there right now. It has, I think, a more matte cardstock, and there are some changes. I'm happy that I have the first edition because I don't like the changes that I did to some of the cards as much as the original one. This deck, you guys, this feels really, really special. It is a really powerful deck. It dives really deep. I read this more intuitively. This is one of the few decks that I'm not necessarily sticking with my RWS meaning or the meaning that I have developed over time, but where really dive deep into the imagery and let that image speak to me and see what message it has to offer. Not that I'm not looking at the image with my other cards or my other decks. I do that too. And I will point out maybe a little detail in the image, or I will alter my base meaning in terms of what the image shows. But with this, it's probably more like you would use soul cards. I still stick to tarot because it has the tarot system to it, but the images speak to me and touch me so deeply. And I actually did a past life reading. I think it is actually the past life reading that is in the book. At least it was in the first edition. And it opened me up to one of my past lives. And it was a really powerful experience. And so I only use this deck for myself. I only use it for ancestor work and past life work. Maybe some life lessons and karma as well, because that is attached to that. And it is super amazing. So that is the deck that speaks to my past life self. The Mary L. Tarot. 2 more decks to go, and for this I have an angel deck and a devil deck. So one is the angel on my shoulder that speaks to my angelic kind of side. Not to say that I'm an angel, no, I'm not, I'm a human being, but that angel kind of side, that nice side, and that helpful side in a way, that deck that is always there for me, that wants me to go on the right path. And then with the devil deck, that is the little devil on my shoulder, that inner primal self that follows its instincts, that gives a shit about our social norms, and that just gives in to passion and lust and all of that stuff. So those are the last 2 categories. And for my angel deck, it is my Moonchild Tarot. This is by Danielle Noel. It is an indie deck. It is available still. And this deck is really special. It feels different than my other decks. It is not necessarily a RWS clone. In some cards it is, in others it goes its own way. It has its own kind of voice. And yeah, it gets, or it feels more feminine to me, more feminine energy. But it's more like that helpful angel on your shoulder telling you, hey, you need to look at that, or warn you from probably some challenges that are coming up, or give you some advice how to best navigate through your life. So, and I had a really special reading experience with this one where I pulled over and over again the Seven of Swords out of this deck. And I didn't really know what it wanted to tell me, but I knew for sure when I pulled it maybe the third or fourth time that there was something important with this specific card. And after the thing happened that had happened over Christmas, that forced me to take a break here on YouTube, I knew what it was going to talk, what it wanted to warn me, or what it wanted to say to me with that card. It is maybe a little bit controversial to talk about that. That's why I'm not mentioning the reason or the topic that it talked about. But if you have watched my update video where I did talk about the reason why I had to pause, and then you heard this, you probably know what I'm talking about and what it did talk, what that Seven of Swords card did talk about and did warn me. So that is that. And lastly, the devil on my shoulder that wants to come out and play and wants me to get wild and yeah, follow my passion is a deck. And disclaimer right here, if you're not comfortable or if you have issues with seeing nudity, seeing dessous, sexy ladies, and everything that has to do with the sex, pause this video, stop watching it here. You have seen all other 9 decks. That is why I did this deck lastly. You have been warned because now we're going into Devil Land. My devil deck is the Slutist Tarot. This deck is an indie deck created by Morgan Claire Serene or Cyrene. I'm not sure if I have pronounced her last name correctly. And first of all, when I first saw this deck, I was like, are you effing shitting me? Like, why do you feel the need to put not only nudity, I have not a problem with nudity, but why do you feel the need to make every tarot card about sex in a way? And I thought it just was a selling and marketing thing, not really thought about it. But then I watched some reviews, and actually the review that Lisa did over on Lisa Papas's channel, she walked through this with Peggy, and she took also a look at the downloadable PDF guidebook. And I mean, they had a lot of fun looking through this and looking at these images. But there's more to this deck than you might think about when you first see it and when you hear the theme of this deck. especially, and this is the deck that I only use with the guidebook, even though you don't get 10 pages of information about each card, the little bit that you get for each card is really in depth and makes you really understand why she chose the thing that she chose on the card, and gives you really in-depth messages. And not only in terms of sexual orientation or that kind of stuff, but really deep general messages about self-love, self-healing, self-acceptance, body acceptance. So yeah, it is actually a really deep deck, even though you wouldn't think that when you see these images. So that is, and how funny is it that this is my double deck and the double deck is actually at the top again, like we did with the Prisma Visions as my High Priestess deck, where the High Priestess was at top. I mean, these decks really say, yeah, you were right with categorizing us in these headlines. All right, so this was my 10 pieces of my soul decks, my We Are to Kelly from the Truth and Story. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you did find some tarot decks in here that you didn't know before. So I will have mentioned all of the decks that I've shown in this video in the video description down below. Hopefully I will have links to every deck if it's still available down there as well. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're new here or if you haven't done yet. That really helps this channel to grow and to develop. And yeah, thank you for watching. Check out my new tarot deck that comes out next week. And yeah, if you want to see more videos, I have a playlist where I have all the VRs that I did already put in there. I will have a link to that in the video description down below as well. So if you want to watch some more videos right now, you can go and click on that link, go into that playlist and watch some more. So thank you for watching again. Thank you to all of my subscribers, and until next time, you guys. Bye.